But the one thing I wanted, I asked ICBF just to take out the ArraTipp EBI spread. So on the top here is herds that have no EBI, 61 herds in that, bottom 20%, 20 to 40%, 40 to 60%, and so on, up to the top 20% and the average. So the herds are split out by EBI, and this is the ArraTipp catchment. So 1,200 herds, approximately, roughly about 230 herds in each group. And we see here that the top 20% are running at around an EBI on average of 165. You guys are 170 odd? Okay, so you're getting up into the top 10%. And the average EBI across the ArraTipp catchment are about 107. So there is a difference. And that difference will always equate into a certain level of production. So it's not just all about EBI, it's obviously about the sub-indices, what's going on, and choosing for milk and choosing for fertility, etc. But if you look at the impact of that, and we look at the amount of, best do it, kilos of milk solids per cow, this is what we can all understand. So your top 20% on average doing about 486, your average are doing 431. So roughly 55 kilos, let's call it 50 kilos for ease, €6 a kilo, is that reasonable-ish? There's about 300 quid of revenue per cow in there in terms of what's driven within the genetic base. It's not entirely genetics, but 50% of that is going to be the farm effect in there, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later. But we do know that there's a significant shift as you move up in EBI, and we will keep on that shift and keep on that trend. It's important for us to do it. I think importantly for us as well, we provide other services. You're aware we do the milk recording and so on. And it's interesting, Anne-Marie, referencing that. Like in that top 20%, we have 90% milk recording. Hassle, difficulty, it's expense, all so on. And I'm glad to hear in ArraTipp you have that sustainability piece. What is about 0.2 of a cent? Okay, in the whole piece, about 0.2 cent of that is coming out of the milk recording piece. So what's important here is, again, is that selection. Are you breeding the right cows? Because a lot of genetics and getting the right animals on your farm, unfortunately, is the law of numbers. And we have to try and push it as much as we can into the animals that we're most likely to get a response from, as against a scenario where we just take the group of animals that present to us in the first 6 weeks. And with sex semen, it's really making that a lot more pertinent because we're really getting down into selection for heifers. So that tightness of selection is very good in one way for the response on farm, but it does lead to challenges for us, which I'll just mention in a few minutes. So the milk recording piece is important. And again, when we see the AI effect, the replacement, like 93% of your replacements are coming from AI in the top 20%, as against around 60% or so within the average. So it doesn't mean things are bad or wrong, or doesn't mean that a farmer that's operating here is doing the wrong thing. All depends on what you choose in terms of your profit, what you want to do in a farm. But if we just look on a numbers basis, that drive, we know that AI bred stock, on average, again, about that magic number of 50 kilos of milk solids that we're actually producing. So it's relatively cheap revenue, even though we'll always be told we're very expensive, which is fine, and I'll accept that. So it's important to see where you are here, and then choice. Where do you want to go, and is it appropriate for you, and do you want to choose it? So I see the direction here with Ryan's has always been pushing that way to make their lives a little bit easier. If you look at some of the Teagasc work, and Stuart, I'm sure is very familiar with this, we know that related to profit, once we start heading up into a high milk subindex and a high fertility subindex, the revenue follows. So is that just the farmer? Is that just the management? Is that, again, just the type of what's going on? But it's pretty consistent. From your profit monitor or looking at a management set of accounts, we know we can generate more revenue out of those cows with that capability. And a big focus for us is really looking at that milk subindex overall. So we've cracked a lot with fertility. We must keep it to maintain those cows calving. And it does bring its pressures. 100 cows in a short period of time, you need to be well set up for it. And I think what I like here when you're talking about the calves, actually do a lot of very simple things really well. And yeah, you don't have a big fancy calf house, but you don't necessarily need to do that either. Again, a lot of the simple things are done well. So we know there's a profit link, but where are we coming to a problem? And I just want you to think about it and think about what LJ has done and thinking about the breeding and using some conventional dairy, which has helped us to find another bull. And like our ability to purchase bulls out there is getting diminished. We normally buy about 100 bulls every year to get into stud, About 30 of those will come to fruition after about a year, where we get them in tested through Gene Ireland. About 70% of what goes through Gene Ireland is coming from the NCBC stable. This year we're looking at maybe buying 60, 65 bulls. To get them, to get the ones with balance, and also to look at the price of those bulls coming into us and to operate with the budget. So where are they going to come from for us? So over here, I don't want to confuse this too much, but that that black line over the years from 2010 into 25, that's the steady increase in EBI, or genetic merit. So we're constantly increasing, and we have to be careful that we keep going up. Here, these bars represent the number of heifers born. Okay, numbers of heifers born. So we see here we had a peak there in 22 in terms of heifers born out of the dairy herd, and that's been steadily going down. We probably are losing at 12-15% in terms of replacement numbers coming into us, but there was a shift last year. We went up by about 18-20% in the use of dairy semen last year, which was vital that it happened. And farmers made that choice themselves. It wasn't us pushing it, but more dairy conventional and dairy semen went in. But that's really changed what's happened with sexed. Less heifers, way more beef stock being produced, and far less dairy males. So we're ending up in 25, where you have this group. We're actually just shy of 500,000 dairy heifers knocking around there. And the green is that these ones are genotyped. Okay? So the situation here with the drop in the use of dairy, we put in about 250,000 dairy beef straws last year, which is a huge shift again. So we have a lower number of dairy bulls out there. We do need some more conventional semen to go in, because that means we will get bulls from high merit cows on the ground to continue that progress. If we don't get them, we're going to find it a challenge to keep going. So the importance for us is, and we've seen a big uptake in what we call contracts. I don't like the term, because a contract is like a legally binding thing that we're going to own your calf as such. No, what the contract does is we're saying mate the cow to this bull. We've selected a cow, and we get an opportunity to see the genotype of that calf. That's what it means. It's an agreement for you to serve the cow with that. So the choice is, when you're using sexed, why in God's name should I do that when I actually really want a heifer off my best cow? But the decision for us is, and again with you guys, is look at those contracts and see what is the benefit down the road for us and for ye in terms of maintaining the genetics within country. And I'm talking about every company. This isn't just us. So consider those contracts when they come out. Have a look at those cows. Have a look at what we can do. And we've seen a big uptake this year. Big shift in. About 50% of those cows are coming back to us. We try and contract about 16,000, 17,000 cows every year, so we can get about 30 calves out of that. You need huge numbers to drive the genetic engine as such that's going on nationally. So genotyping will help us. We see them earlier. We can pick more and find the outliers in there. So genotype if you can, really, really helps. Helps select out the animals for you as well. You're always serving your best heifers to bring on your own genetic merit. So over here, if you can swivel the eyes, this is something that we looked at. We took all our milk recording herds. So Munster Bovine, we milk record about 600,000 cows, 5,200 herds roughly, and we have a system in place to do that in terms of the EDOI vans and the manual. About 165 contracted milk recorders out there doing it. So we have a lot of experience doing this, and again, we're trying to refine it, reinvest in it the whole time to keep it going. But the importance of it is we looked at the herds milk recording, and we looked at their genetic merit for milk solids, not for fertility and not overall EBI. As we increase the genetic merit for milk solids in the herd, the production goes up. It has to. Genetically, these cows are better and they will produce more. There's no question. So it's a good decision. We look for genetic merit for milk solids in the bulls. But the difference in the herds is between what we call herds in a lower environment or lower output environment and herds in a higher output environment on exactly the same genetic merit. There's a difference of 200 kilos of milk solids in those herds. So the impact of the farm environment on the genetics is huge. So we can drive it on genetically, but you've got to choose where you are here. Now, I'm not saying that this guy is the most profitable. This could be 4 ton of meal and no grass and a complete disaster. This guy could be no meal at all, doing it really well on grass and being highly profitable. So you've got to see where you are with your cow type. What we're focused on, have they got genetic merit for milk solids in there? Can you produce? And then where do you want to be here in terms of your finance and your money? So that's what we're trying to go for in terms of Munster bovine, the direction. Can we provide you with this? We need your help a little bit here in terms of finding male calves and using some level of conventional. Okay? And again, are we making sure we're driving EBI within the co-op structure for solids production? Because our goal, can we get to the black and white doing a volume at 9% solids? That's where we want to go. And we think that's feasible genetically if we keep pushing the right way within the national herd. We don't necessarily have to import genetics to do that. We have it here when we see it within the genotypes. So that's a little bit of an overview, and I think the lads here are a real example of that. Unfortunately, being cleared out with BSE and all that crack. I remember all that stuff going on at the time. It was huge shift and change, and you had to go for that fertility piece. And EBI drove on fertility extremely well and brought a lot of profitability to farms. However, we've another step now. There's a step change, and I think you lads are well on the way to doing that. All right? So that's just a little overview. And if you want to question any of that or talk about it, because again, all this is generated by ye. This is not us telling you. This is not us generating this. This is your data. Any comments? What have we done, Andrew? We had a Kavanagh here a minute ago. I was going to use it as a pointer, but I wasn't too sure. It was very rusty, which is another good sign. Another good sign. Okay, we will leave it at that. And we'll be around because there's a couple of, I know there's a few questions on vaccine and Bluetongue and stuff like that might actually pop up, and we can deal with it later if you want. Unless you want to ask that now while you've got me to talk about it.
Are there side effects to Bluetongue?
Are there side effects to Bluetongue, the vaccine? Yeah, look, there's been an awful lot of talk, right? At the moment, if you look at, and at the moment the vaccine that we've been provided with is produced by one company, Boehringer, are doing it. They've used about 45 million doses of that in Europe. They're not recording side effects that are negative for animals out there. And I think you had an interesting one, Anne-Marie, you might say about just after you vaccinated with the temperature, just on your SMAX tech.
Oh yeah, the temperature does spike like any other vaccine that we give cows, but we can turn down the temperature on the SMAX tech for 24 hours, so at least you're not inundated with a load of them, but the cow temperatures definitely do go up after any vaccine.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we see. I see people say, oh, cows get a bit stiff after, a bit sore, it might be a bit of a drop. Like if you go in and get a vaccine, you'll come home and take paracetamol. Generally, cows don't. So we do see it and we do pick it up on that. It's an inactivated vaccine. I am not concerned about using it during the breeding season. There is no evidence to say it's going to knock conceptions out.
Is there different strains of Bluetongue?
There are.
Is the vaccine we're using going to hit?
No, the vaccine is designed for one strain, BTV3. There's, I can't remember the phrase, 20-something strains of Bluetongue. We have 12 and 8 in the UK as well. And this is the issue we have is, should we just throw it up in the air and say, not bother vaccine, we're going to these other strains and we're stuck with it. Will the national herd become immune? The problem I have with that is, because we're such a tight seasonal pattern, if you get a fertility bump off Bluetongue, it'll kill you for 3 or 4 years. And the issue is that the all-year-round herds in Europe that got affected recovered after about 6 months. The milk supply started to recover out of them. But in seasonal herds, we could get a damnation for 18 months, 2 years, 3 years in terms of drop in productivity and fertility. And that's what we're really worried about. Hence, we are pushing, and we would really push you into vaccination.
How much reduction in fertility and milk have you seen in these cells?
The individual herds within the European environment, we had some cases where those herds dropped fertility by over 50%. Okay, in individual herds in the UK, they saw those incidents happen, but less so. Production drops 10-20% potentially in the midst of an outbreak of Bluetongue. So, but it's down to individual herds. Some herds are turning positive for Bluetongue. You see nothing. They just gradually turn positive. They cope with it. Individual cows get over it and they keep moving on. But significant outbreaks are a problem. The timing of it is critical. If you get Bluetongue towards the latter part of the year, you could start running into abortions, stillbirths, and those dummy calves. Okay, so it's very timing dependent and how many get affected at the one time.
Is there a chance that Bluetongue could be in this country with 10 years? Or we haven't been testing for it?
The department have had, and again, I don't know if it's anyone from the department here. Department surveillance has been going on for a couple of years. So I think from that, I don't know how long, but there's regular surveillance and they haven't picked it. It is unlikely it's been here for 10 years and we haven't seen it. Unlikely. Though we have seen, there's other viral conditions we are seeing definitely in herds. And we see it locally or regionally that we haven't quite put our finger on. There's also the risk in the States, things like influenza jumping into cow herds, but we haven't seen that in Europe as yet. Okay?
Is there any other management tips farmers could do to try and minimise the risk with, say, spot-ons and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's no real evidence to say they do a lot. I think on standard and grazing herds, I think spot-ons are standard to try and keep fly levels down. I think the one sensible thing you can do with a lot during the summer period, try and get the dung heaps away from the yards. You'll have massive, massive amounts of midge larvae will get in that first inch or two in the dung heap. And if you can't do it, there might be some evidence some hydrated lime on the top of the dung heap can change the pH and just remove some of the midge larvae. Jesus, after that you're stuck. Really, there's very little you can do. All the bulls in our barns, we've 250 bulls in the barns, they're all vaccinated for Bluetongue now.
And does it affect the fertility in the bull if you run a temperature after getting the vaccine?
Well, if it does, and Doreen Corrigan has vaccinated all our bulls and we're trying to produce semen out of them, I'll strangle her, right? At the moment, again, from the European experience of Boehringer, we've seen no effect on bull fertility. If a stock bull gets Bluetongue, he's not in a good way. He's going to lose his fertility. If he runs a temperature with Bluetongue, he's done for the season. And the problem is you won't find out until you have a bunch of empties.
People shouldn't inject cow and calf or heifer for Bluetongue.
Shouldn't?
No.
Okay.
But if it's that you came across a farmer in 2 or 3 abortions.
Yeah, and we've heard that, and there's, I suppose, having enough numbers to know whether that's actually causative or not. So I can give a vaccine on a day and something happens 2 days later, but it may not be anything to do with the vaccine.
But this is like the virus we got a few years ago in the pig. One person with no reaction, another person out the blue with.
Yeah, it's true.
Like the COVID.
Yeah, if you take a population, if I take 1 million cows and I vaccinate them with vaccines, I'll get a bunch of those cows are super vaccinated, loads of antibodies. I get a bunch of those cows with no antibodies at all. So the whole thing is about a population. If you get to 80% vaccination in the cattle population, you'll probably limit the disease completely. If we stay at 40, 50%, I cannot guarantee what will happen at farm level. Okay? So I'll still promote vaccine as against not promote it.